Hello very much. Today I was feeling very inspired to go back in my sketchbook and do some art that I started and never finished. So this was one of my sketches that I found. This was basically like a tester of a drawing that I did and it actually fully completed. I just felt like this version didn't feel like what I wanted the character to be. So instead of scrapping it, I just tucked it away in my sketchbook. I was like, I'll come back to it eventually. And today is that day. So with my drawings, I usually always start with the faces. But this one, I was feeling like jumping to the bow since I feel like it's very centered in the paper and it's kind of like a eye-catching part, like this really massive bow. So I started with that. And for all of my line art like this, I use watered down acrylic paint and a really fine paintbrush. Now I know this doesn't work for everyone, but I really love the application that acrylic paint gives me. So this is how I found that it's easiest for me to do all these fine details. I actually have 2 hours of footage. That's how slow I worked on this drawing. Somehow compacted it into almost 13 minutes. So as I said, I do kind of jump around with my art. So here I am going to the top portion of the bow. It was easier to connect these two parts, but also sometimes when I stare at a detail for too long, I start to feel like I'm going insane. For this one, I definitely do feel like I jumped around a lot, but you know, it ended up being fine and I'm really happy. So as I said, this was like a scrapped sketch of a drawing that I fully finished. The drawing that I fully finished, I'll put in here. But this one just felt strange, like it didn't feel like how I wanted the character to be. And I especially feel like after I finish this drawing, I still feel like maybe it's the amount of black lines, maybe it's too much, because I don't feel like this is a bad concept. But I'm really kind of playing around with the idea of giving her like clown makeup. I was trying to go for very like 80s vibes with this piece when I made it. But I feel like it just barely missed that mark. And once again, I feel like maybe if I tweak the colors, I definitely feel like I will play around with this drawing a lot more. Now that I have the sketch part done, it's easier for me to go back and to make copies and to change this. But I do feel like this is a cool concept. It just needs some better execution with like colors. So now I'm moving on to the hair, which the hair definitely gave me some troubles, especially the bangs. And then there's these little like curly flyaway pieces. Those definitely gave me some trouble too. But I love the shape that her hair ended up having in the end. In a little bit we'll see. I actually ended up putting my hand down on the drawing and I had some wet paint on it, so it smeared way past where I was going to initially have the hair at. So I had to extend the hair a little bit, but I definitely feel like it was for, yeah, see that little black line? I'm having to extend the hair now, but I definitely feel like it was for the better because when I see this drawing in the end, I really love how it's very flat. Her hair is very flat toward the top, but then as it gets to the bottom, it gets really big and full and fluffy, and I really like that concept. So now I'm moving on to the bangs. This part definitely caused me some trouble. Did not love filling these bangs out. It was just the very round shape of them and also how many curves I had put into the reflection of her hair. It was just not fun for me to do. I kept messing up lines, I kept having to extend lines. Okay, I'm finally finishing up the bow now. As I said, I do like to jump around on my drawings, especially when details are starting to cause me to go insane or I'm just tired of looking at them. And this bow, with the amount of thin lines it had, it definitely was causing me to go a little insane. But in the end, I do love how many wrinkles I did end up putting in this bow. I love how full it is. I just love the concept of a really, really, really big bow. And that's why I do think when I go back with colors, this would be a really fun character to either do as like a really dramatic clown or pull some 80s inspiration. Maybe give her a different shirt, like a blazer would be really cool. I'm thinking like bright blue blazer with like a electric pink bow. That could be very 80s vibes and could also kind of be a nice contrast. But I do think this character is definitely going to have multiple renditions. It's just such a nice sketch that I feel like I can change and tweak and add stuff to. So I definitely don't feel like this will be her final form. In fact, as I am filming this voiceover, I'm getting more inspiration for her, so she might have a different version out sooner than later. Watching this video back is definitely making me relive how tedious it was to do specifically this side of the hair. I don't know why. When we get to around this point of the video, I was over halfway done with her. The sun was setting alarmingly fast, and I was getting very tired of doing all of the little tiny thin lines. So for a lot of this side especially, I ended up just kind of rushing through it and just kind of saying it is what it is. But it still turned out good, so I'm not mad that I rushed through it. Sometimes I do feel like my art does look a little better when I rush through it and I just make myself push through the art. Here is actually a real-time clip of me painting the face. This is how slow I move with the line art. It's a lot of adjusting the paper, carefully adding the lines. I've done a lot of like this like cartoon kind of pinup art style, but I definitely feel like I'm finally starting to get to the point where I can see the faces that my characters need. Like I really love the thin arched eyebrows. I love a thick eyeliner, and I've especially found that I love these drawings when they have bangs. I've seen many artists do this pinup style, and I was very inspired by this pinup style around 2020 when I found 3 artists in particular that I was just like blown away. Like I remember just scrolling through their artwork and just being so inspired by how their art turned out. And now I find myself sitting in school or sitting at home and I'm always drawing these very dramatic faces. This is just such a fun art style to do, and I love doing all of the line work. This was actually my first time I ever took a character and did a full portrait of them. Normally I do like full body drawings. I love to do like a character like in action or having like some kind of dynamic pose. But this was the first time that I was like, I just want to do a portrait. I especially feel like this was a good way to go with this art since I had not made art for myself since December. I'll insert a picture of that here. I do want to do like a full body version of this character, especially for like the clown route, because I think it'd be so fun to do like a very frilly outfit, lots of like fluffy pom-poms on the bodysuit. I can just really see the vision for this character as a full body, but I do like how I did the portrait because I get a really close look at all of the details, and it will be easier for me to translate this into a smaller drawing now that I do have a blown up version of it. So now I'm going back and I'm doing a lot of pen work with this drawing. Some of my lines do end up being with pen rather than my paint, because especially when I'm doing really thin lines, it's easier to just go over it with a pen and not have to do multiple lines and worry about them getting thicker. So like, as you can see, I'm touching up areas of the face, I'm touching up areas of the hair. And now I'm going back onto the bodysuit, which I definitely feel like when I do a full body version of this character, this bodysuit will be changing because I'm not loving the proportions that I gave her. I feel like her torso looks too long compared to like her head. And maybe it's just the bow that's throwing me off. I've never done a character with such a statement piece before, but there's just something about her. She's feeling very like proportionately wrong. But, you know, that's fine. I can fix that later on. This was like the portion where I started to like rush even quicker through this drawing. I added a pop of color to this line art because I love doing like the all black line art with like a pop of red. Like, I love it so much. So I decided to do red lips on this character. This was literally the last thing I did on her, signing my name, and that is the complete drawing. I am actually feeling very inspired to go back and revisit this character. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you'd love to see more content like this.